Well, hey everybody. Welcome to another episode of How to Survive Survival. I this is such, every guest that I get to talk to is just so interesting, aren't they? And this one is no different. I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation that I had with former combat veteran Brad Craven, who has turned his pain into purpose and figured out how to survive survival through creating a nonprofit called the Warrior Wildlife Conservation Foundation. And what he does is he takes combat veterans to Africa and trains them in anti-poaching. And then they go work with conservation groups and help reduce the instances of poaching and give purpose back to combat veterans who come back from, deployments, from war, from all kinds of things with PTSD, and gives them purpose through these trainings and these courses and these experiences. So I know you're going to find Brad super inspiring, his story incredibly interesting, and I hope you'll stay for the entire thing. Hi, I'm Jessica Buchanan, and this is How to Survive Survival. This podcast is about what comes after the crisis, after the moment that changes everything, after you've done what you had to do just to get through. Each week, I sit down with people who faced hardship and made a deliberate choice about what to do with it. People who've turned pain into purpose, who found a way to make meaningful contribution because of what they survived, not in spite of it. Because survival isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of who you become next. Welcome to the show. Well, welcome so much to How to Survive Survival, Brad. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, just to give us like a little bit of context before we get into the survival part, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and take us to, well, let's just start at the very beginning if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in Denver, Colorado, 1982, to two wonderful parents, caring parents who my dad ran his own glassware business, Viller and Bach, fine china to hotels.
Wow.
And then my mom was she was a CBS producer. She
Oh,
promoted Mike Tyson fights, Roberto Duran fights, back in the early 80s.
wow.
Uh, and
That's
yeah,
interesting work.
yeah. She also, before that, was a medical illustrator, heavy into art, and
Yeah.
a businesswoman now. So very accomplished, to say the least.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
All right.
life was life was good. Life was good. At 4 years old in 1986, my younger brother Sam was born. Um, Unfortunately, the doctor during the birth panicked. His feet were first. The umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. He
Mhm.
was in the canal too long. And
Oh.
at about 2 years old, from when he was born until about 2 years old, his legs, we noticed something wasn't quite right. His legs were out to the sides. He would bring toys up, to his face and kind of hum soothing sounds.
Mhm.
Um, and at 2 years old, he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and autism,
Wow.
which was devastating, to say the least, to both my parents. Um,
Hmm.
so it was just kind of, one step after another. They finally went to a doctor, and this doctor, who my father really will never forgive, he said that Sam would not walk and that he would be a vegetable, that he would not have a quality of life. Um, During that time, obviously my mom felt tremendous guilt. My dad felt tremendous guilt. Um, but they said, no, this isn't going to happen. We
Yeah.
refuse for our son to, not have a life. So they
Hmm.
researched and searched, and my mom found Shriners Hospital, which is out here in
Hmm.
San Francisco, California. Similar to St. Jude's, they pay for your travel, your lodging, hospital bills, surgeries, therapy. So we moved from Denver in 1991 out to California. Um, And I had to grow up quick because dad, would work and mom would be with Sam at surgeries or at therapies. And it was all done out of love, Jessica. We struggled.
Mm.
My parents took a loss on the house in Denver. We struggled, but we
Yeah.
had love. We had each other.
Hmm.
So that kind of, I think, is the foundation of service and what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Um, because I've seen my parents struggle and sacrifice for a cause greater than themselves.
Hmm.
I've seen my brother wake up some mornings with terrible cramps. If you can imagine, when you swim and you get that toe curl cramp in your
Yep.
toe. Well,
Yep.
imagine that times 100 throughout your whole body. And
Goodness.
Sam wakes up with that. In the mornings, we stretch. He relaxes. We laugh, and the kid never says, "Why me?" Never,
Hmm.
never
Hmm.
complained. Never has said, "Why has this happened to me?" Just kind of,
Hmm.
what's next? And
Okay.
that has always been a perspective and an outlook that I cherish. As far as how I approach my life, and um,
Hmm.
you as well as I know, so many people, think that they have things bad when we see that things aren't that bad, really.
Right. Perspective, right?
um, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
So that continued into high school, and they did at Shriners Hospital. They did a brand new procedure called a dorsal rhizotomy, where they basically cut Sam's back open, a 10-inch incision, and cut the tight tendons that cause spasticity within the limbs. Sam has graduated high school. He's gone to college. He's had girlfriends. He's went to proms.
Mm.
I get emotional about it, but he's been a Paralympian. Um, it's one of the
Wow.
things that I did after my service to
Uh-huh.
help him. So yeah, through high school, I played basketball. We moved a lot, so I kind of had to be the new kid on the block because we
Hmm.
moved to so many places. And sports were really my outlet, physical, and then
Hmm.
obviously helping my younger brother. Um, I graduated in 2000. Helped around, back home and worked different jobs, and then obviously 2001 happened. And on
Hmm.
my dad's side of the family, we have somebody who served in every major conflict since the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
Um,
What a legacy.
yes, yes. Um, and so, I tried to play some college basketball. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out the way that I wanted to. I ended up getting hurt my ankle,
Mm.
which of course later on I had to have a deferment in the military for that injury. Um, but 2003 came around. In August of 2003 is when I decided to join the Navy.
Okay.
Um, and off I went to basic in Chicago. Once I finished basic, I then got sent to Pensacola, Florida for A school,
Mhm.
aviation boatswain's mate A school. I got sent to the East Coast, TAD, temporary assigned duty, because the ship that I got assigned to, the Dwight D. Eisenhower, was in dry dock. So I
Okay.
got sent to the USS Gator, which is an LHD, and I actually got some deployment time and some reps the 2 years that I was there. They had a program where you could go back to A school if you had gone TAD. So then I ended up going back to Pensacola. I went through more flight tech operations training. I went through more fire damage control training, graduated second in my class, and then I went to San Diego and was on the USS Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
Um, and, it was tough, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
serving in the military. I almost didn't get in because of my eyesight.
Hmm.
So that was a struggle. And then in 2006, we got deployed to the Gulf, to Iraq, in support of
Okay.
Operation Iraqi
Hmm.
Freedom. Working on the arresting gear and the catapults is, in my opinion, the second most dangerous job in the world comparatively to the guys that are on the ground in ground combat.
Hmm.
Chaotic symphony, if you will, of jets and aircraft moving around, launching and recovering F-18s every 90 seconds, arresting gear wires coming in and out. that are 1.5 inch steel cables, jets turning the ship, if you can believe it. The USS Ronald Reagan, you can stand it on its aft end, and it's as big as the Empire State Building. So
Oh
it's
my
a
goodness.
massive, massive ship. But when
How
we're
long
out
were
to
you on
sea,
that
that
ship?
thing lists. I was on that for 2 years, 2 years, and
Oh my
we got
goodness.
deployed downrange for seven months. Yeah,
Wow.
my first deployment. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It was a. I wouldn't change any of it. You know, it was 20-hour day.
Sure.
It was 115-degree heat. We ended up having some crashes in training where people got hurt. We ended up
Mm.
losing 2 guys during some training ops as we were moving to the Gulf. Um, so yeah, it was intense. One of the guys was a really close friend of mine, and you know, Jessica, you've been through chaotic situations. You know,
Mhm.
when you see someone that is close to you, lose their life or get injured, it changes you. It changes you
Yes.
for the long term. It
Yes,
makes
it
you
does.
appreciate things on top of, uh, as a leader, as a petty officer. I questioned, whether I should have, you go left when you should have gone right, or I
Right.
should have pushed him, or I should have done this, or so that sticks with you, and it's I think any combat veteran will tell you, yes, the trauma is tough. What you see is
Yeah.
tough. What you have to do is tough.
Yeah.
But what really sticks with you is the survivor's guilt. Could I have
Mm.
done more? Could I have
Yeah.
uh, pushed myself more? Um,
Or, I
and
mean,
once
you
you
have this question too that you have to grapple with, like, why wasn't it me? Why not me?
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, it should have been. I should have been there right next to him.
Yeah.
Should have been there
Yeah.
right next to him, which is
And so, and what do you do with that then? Like, how do you reconcile that? Because I think that that is a lot of what moves, if we move into the survival piece and that part of your story, like what do you do with that feeling or that belief of, well, why did I survive? Why am I still here? That question.
yeah, it's something that um, I grappled with for a long time, and I still
Mhm.
grapple with it. And one of the things that I came to terms with was I have to earn my right to come home. I have to
Mhm.
figure out something that earns my ticket home, that earns my life in
Mhm.
place of those that are no longer here.
Yeah.
And that's something that you've talked to veterans. That is one of the biggest things that helps veterans with that survivor's guilt, and that it should have been me, or I should have done this. And that's where that selfless service comes in. And we hit on it a little bit earlier. When you come out of the service, you're trained to be at this high operational standard training level, and
Right.
you come home and you stand in a line at the grocery store. I've heard stories where guys have a full week worth of groceries, and somebody in the front line is complaining about a 10 cents coupon,
Yeah.
and they throw their groceries down and walk out. Right? Um,
Right.
it's a deep traumatic thing. So one of the things that helped me when I came home was my younger brother, and taking over training him for his Paralympic endeavors. Sam's a pretty big kid. If he could stand up straight, he'd probably be 6'4", about
Wow.
250, uh,
Uh-huh.
and can throw an 8-pound shot put from a seated position almost 30 feet. Almost 30 feet.
I mean, I'm
Um,
guessing that
so
that's I'm guessing that's a lot. I don't know anything about shot
yeah,
put, so
from a seated position, that's pretty good.
that's impressive. Okay.
especially, yeah, especially with all of the spasticity and obviously cerebral
Yeah.
palsy that he has and endures. Um, so
So
I
you
got I
came
got
back and really like reconnected with this purpose of supporting Sam.
yes,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, I struggled. We subsidize things with alcohol, and and
Yeah.
struggle with depression and anxiety
Yeah.
and
Yep.
um, tears and not sleeping and
Yeah.
nightmares and all of these
Yep.
things, right? and those all played a part. But I found more and more that if I um, gave my energy and my purpose to somebody else, then I started to feel better. I started to feel not so guilty. I started to feel more driven. The
Hmm.
anxiety started to kind of dissipate. The nightmares, I think, they've gotten better. Now
Hmm.
it's every 3 to 4 months.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, they still come and go, as I'm sure
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, and have dealt with. But as we get clarity and we, having a family, having a partner, having a
Mhm.
business, writing a book or whatever it is, you have that purpose. It starts to get better. It starts to get
Yeah.
better.
What
So
do you
yeah,
think keeps people from like understanding that and staying in those like unhealthy habits of perhaps the alcohol or overeating or shopping or I don't know, numbing out. Like this is what I'm so fascinated with this with understanding what causes one person to go one way and another survivor to go another way. Do
sure.
you have like, I mean, I know you can speak to your own example, but do you have like, or your own experience, but do you have like a hypothesis or a theory as to why some people aren't able to access that like that feeling of service or that act of service that can move them into a place of like healing?
Yeah, Jessica, I went to when I came back 2000. So I got out in just the beginning of 2008, and struggled for a couple of years. And
Yeah,
about 2012 is when you go to the VA, and I'm sure you've heard veterans talk about the
all
VA
the
isn't the
time.
greatest.
All the
Um,
time. Yeah.
and I had counselors at the VA that were about 22 years old, just out of high school, it seemed like, asking me how I felt, and
Yeah.
that didn't
It
work.
didn't sit well. Yeah. Gee, I can't understand why.
Yeah. So I did some more research, and I found a place that's connected to the VA, but it's called the Vet Center,
Uh-huh.
and it's run by all combat veterans. There's combat vets at the front desk. There's combat veteran counselors, and so I went there and talked to a guy that served during Vietnam. Actually, his name was
Mm.
Denver. Go figure. Um,
If
and,
that's a pretty good
and
sign there.
yes, absolutely, right. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and instead of starting with the military experience and those things, he started with my childhood and how my childhood affected the way that I deal with trauma and the way that I deal with PTSD.
Uh-huh.
And we delve into it as I was growing up as a protector, right?
Mm.
So that's where my guilt came from. And in order to relieve myself of that guilt, I had to continue to protect. Um, so I'm not obviously not a doctor, but my personal opinion is it's where somewhere along your childhood, that's how you can either deal with trauma or go the other way. And I think inspiring people, people can always change, right? And exactly what you're doing with this podcast and what I try to do with my organization is try to inspire people. And once you get
Mhm.
people in that situation where they feel free and they feel safe to talk and have a conversation where they feel free around other veterans, in
Mhm.
my case, then start to see people and bloom. And I've had guys and girls come back from one of our deployments in Africa, and the family members, the
Mhm.
spouse or the children will call me and say, Brad, when is the next deployment? Our person has come back to our person. We need to get them on another deployment. So
Wow.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is so interesting. So like if I can maybe repeat back to you what I heard you say is that you had this experience with this combat veteran who really helped you trace back through your childhood and tap into that history of resilience and helped you identify the
yep,
fact that you are a protector. And so, in order for you to continue to move through PTSD and heal your emotional side and in your mind, you needed to be able to continue to move forward in that protector role. Did I understand that
Absolutely.
correctly? Okay.
Absolutely.
That's really
Yes.
enlightening and
Yes.
very insightful. Because I think a lot about my childhood and different than yours, but needed still I'm the oldest and I was very much the protector and the nurturer
Yes.
and that
Yeah.
demanded a certain level of resilience from me. And I often wonder if my childhood prepared me for some of the tougher moments in my life, like being kidnapped, in order to
Mm.
tap into that resilience. And my childhood is definitely something that I went back to and thought about a lot actually while I was in captivity. So I find that just super fascinating. Um,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit then, like if we pivot just a bit, like how did you wind up in Africa?
Well, Sam, unfortunately, won a gold, silver in the Parapan Games, and then unfortunately his hip gave out. He's going to need a hip replacement. With cerebral palsy, they're not going to do one because his muscles are so spastic and tight. Um, and so I started looking for another purpose. Growing up, I'd always been fascinated with African wildlife, with lions specifically. And so I started to research volunteer opportunities in
Okay.
South Africa. I found a lion sanctuary where you could go volunteer for a week, for a month, and basically go work with these lions. And this sanctuary actually sat kind of on the edge of an actual wildlife reserve where you have big
Uh-huh.
five. The big five is
Yeah.
elephant, rhino, buffalo, lion, leopard.
Yep.
Um, and I was in. So I started saving my money and away I went. That was 2015 in November. And I spent my first trip there, a month there, and really just fell in love with the whole process and being out on the African, wild bush, uh,
Yeah.
meeting people from different cultures and different backgrounds, and the bush knowledge, being able to track animals and oh, we have a line in camp. We got to go at 2 in the morning and hop in the truck and push that line out of camp. So it started kind of bringing back those military
Yeah.
echelon type of energies, if you will,
Yeah. I
and
can see
mission
that. Yeah.
and excitement and purpose and fulfillment and all those things. Um, so yeah, so I spent a month there, and these lions are rescued from the canned hunting industry. I don't know if you know what that is, but they
I do, but maybe for our listeners, if you can explain it a little bit.
sure. So lions, they raise lions in captivity in
Mhm.
horrid conditions. Some of them, gain disabilities from malnutrition.
Mhm.
I mean, a plethora of different things. Actually, there's cub petting where they drug the cubs, so tourists can take photos, and they're told, oh, these lions will be released. You can't release wildcats into the wild once they're in captivity.
Right.
Um, and then they're basically raised and put into a field that is fenced, maybe a football-sized field, and somebody pays pretty hot top dollar to come in and shoot that
Yep.
animal for a trophy,
Yep.
which is awful. There's no chance for
It's
that animal
horrific.
to do anything,
Yeah.
and they live terrible lives. I mean, I've seen certain canned hunting facilities where it's basically a warehouse, and there's 50 lions in there, and they throw a piece of meat
Oh
in,
my,
and yeah, it's awful. It's
oh
just
my God.
terrible. So this guy had rescued 28 of them, and he had worked at the Lion Park and kind of became wise to what was going on, and ended up getting some sponsorship and then buying 28 of the lions and taking them to and building this sanctuary in a place called Dino King, South
Okay.
Africa. It's just north of
Uh-huh.
Pretoria, South Africa.
Yep.
Um, and so I just fell in love, and I started listening and learning from the rangers, from
Hmm.
conservationists, from anti-poaching. There was anti-poaching units at the sanctuary because there are lions do get poached. Another thing called the
Yeah.
lion bone trade, where they take the paws and the heads and sell the bones and the teeth. Um, and I just kept listening and learning. And how does this work? And how do I do this? And how do you operate on foot in the bush safely? How can I get more involved? Um,
Hmm.
and I kept going back. I'd save my money and go back once or twice a year.
Hmm. Hmm.
My third or fourth trip, I trained with an anti-poaching unit called ProTrack, and I did their 6 week, pretty tough course
Hmm.
at 36, and most of the other kids were like 19. So
Hmm.
it was, it was
Once again, you get to be the protector.
yes, exactly. It's a stark contrast, but that's another thing, Jessica. These rangers that go through these training, organizations and want to become rangers remind me of myself. When
Hmm.
I joined the military, and remind me of the guys and the guys, ladies and gentlemen that I worked with in the Navy. That drive for service, right?
Yeah.
And that's what drives me today.
Hmm.
So I did that training, and then I started to kind of think about, if this can. I'd come home from that trip. My parents and my girlfriend at the time said, "Brad, this has brought you back to you. How do we bottle this?" And I said, "Well,
Yeah.
I said, keep going to Africa."
Yeah.
And that bug, it's just
Oh, it is relentless.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It's magical. It's unexplainable. It's
Yes.
powerful. It's
Yeah.
drawing the people,
Yep.
just the atmosphere, the
I mean,
excitement. I
yes,
mean,
I dream
the
about it every
perspective.
day still. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and I don't think that everybody obviously feels that way about Africa or would
Sure.
understand that, or maybe they feel that way about another place. But people have said that to me before. It gets in your blood. And then when you
Yes.
connected that with something so purposeful and so meaningful in an act of service, I mean, I can imagine that it's like all you can think about.
Yes. I can't wait till the next one. I can't wait till the next one. I mean, it's just, and I've gotten a good balance. When I'm home, I still assist and care for my younger brother.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm sorry, I get emotional, but unfortunately, we lost my dad last year. I'm sorry, my dog keeps coming in here.
That's okay.
We lost my dad last year. He was, as I told
Mhm.
you, yeah. Um, he was a lieutenant in the Army in 2013. After I finished training my younger brother and he got hurt, I kind of started going downhill again a
Mhm.
little bit, drinking a bit too much,
Mhm.
partying too much. And he sat me down one night. We had a glass of scotch, and he says, "Brad," he says, if your buddies who didn't make it home, if they were here, would they be proud, or would they be disappointed?"
Mm.
And that's
Ooh.
what has stuck with me. It was a shot through the soul. It was a
Yeah, that's
shot
an
through the
intense
soul.
question. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
shot through the soul. Um, and so that's what has driven me to be where I am today. And after that trip, when I said, "Hey, we have to bottle this," I started asking more questions and figuring out how we bring veterans in. If this can do this for me, it's got to be able to do it for other veterans.
Yeah.
So in 2020 is when I started Warriors for African Wildlife,
Okay.
nonprofit, 501c3. And we bring veterans over to Africa, and we put them through a pretty intensive custom 4 week course at our different training partners. We work with the Southern African Wildlife College. We work with ProTrack, FSCA, some other organizations. And they first start with responsible community outreach. So learning how to responsibly approach village communities and not come in, as from a Western point of view and
Yeah.
ask the community what they need. They don't necessarily need a school or a park. They need
Yeah.
water, they need food, or they need
Right.
medical attention, or they need school uniforms, or hey, can we
Mm.
do a soccer team because this will keep our youth out of trouble. All the
Yeah.
other villages or towns have soccer teams. Um, so our veterans start with that, and there are specific experts that are South African or from Southern Africa that teach these courses. And then we bring the guys and girls into what we call the bush phase. So it's a combination of classroom theory, animal tracking, animal sign. So learning what animal dung looks like from elephants,
Uh-huh.
from buffalo, or predator scat, right? What they
Uh-huh.
look like. So you can be able to tell what is around you on foot when you're in the bush. Um,
Yeah.
we teach them the different behavior characteristics of elephants, lions, buffalo, hippo, which ones are the most dangerous, which ones you may have to confront in the bush.
Mhm.
I'm sure you know this, hippos kill the most people, and then right under that are buffaloes, not lions
Yeah,
or leopards or anything
I
else.
know. That was shocking
It's
to me when I first
those
discovered, when I
yeah,
first learned that. I remember my first trip to, I
yeah.
was in South Sudan and we were right along the Nile and there were hippos. And I was like, oh, I want to go down and see them. And everybody was like, no, hippos are so
No,
dangerous. And I'm like,
they
seriously?
are.
Their cute little ears like
Yeah,
flicking out of the water. Like, they were like, stay far away,
yeah.
crazy
And they
white
can
lady.
run like horses.
I know. They're
They can
incredible.
run.
They're incredible.
I've actually the last trip we came back onto the reserve pretty late. We had picked up another guy from the airport, and we drove onto the reserve. And I don't know if you know this, but hippos actually come out of the water to graze, like cattle. They come out of the
Hmm.
water and they eat grass on the
Yeah.
African plains. And sure enough, I'm driving up, and there comes three hippos and the baby. And the
Ooh,
mom chased us for a good probably 150 yards up the road
yikes.
with all I could see in the rearview mirror with those big teeth coming right at us. So no, they're dangerous at least.
Yeah.
So
So,
so the guys go
so
through
you,
that theory course. Oh, go ahead.
okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So the guys go through that theory course, and then the place where we train actually sits in the middle of a reserve. So then we
Hmm.
take them out on foot and we actually approach elephants. So we teach them how to walk up to elephants, and we get them literally within. You don't want to approach the breeding herds, the females with calves, because they're very testy for obvious reasons. But if
Yeah.
you do it right and announce yourself via upwind, downwind, sight, not move in too quickly, I've literally gotten groups of veterans in where we have elephants, male elephants, all around us, and showing them that it's not magic. It's respect, right?
Yeah.
And announcing yourself just like you would with your neighbor. Or there's another example that I like to use. If you saw, Shaquille O'Neal in a bar, you wouldn't run up on him and invade his space, right? You would announce yourself and say, "Hello, Mr. O'Neal. My name is
Yeah.
such and such."
Yeah.
So it's very similar. So teaching the guys how to operate fully safely in the bush, and then they go into basic and advanced anti-poaching ranger training, which is small unit tactics. It's 4 to 6 man team tactics, going out on patrols, setting up temporary bases. We do man tracking. We do close-in air support with helicopters and fixed wing. We do stopper groups where we've picked up tracks on a road that are invasive. We bring the dogs in. We get a compass bearing on the direction of those tracks. And then we send teams to kind of hop, jump, or hop, skip the poachers on the back end and close them in a pincer movement. Um, and just teaching the guys all these different tactics that the African Rangers use, which then builds trust with African reserve managers,
Hmm.
wardens, poaching leaders. Once our veterans have completed this course, then it's just like a military graduation. They get a certificate. We do a salute, a handshake. They get their first Warriors for African Wildlife Velcro patch, and each deployment they get a patch that shows that they went, on this specific deployment.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's training rangers, we've relocated elephants, we've dehorned rhinos, we've studied wild dogs, we've done community outreach. So yeah, we're going. This will be in February. I go to Uganda to start in gorilla conservation, which is pretty
Wow.
exciting.
That is so
Pretty
exciting.
yes,
Okay, so this is available to veterans.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I have so many questions. Like, how do they find out about you? How do they qualify to join one of these deployments? And what are their, like, what impact does it have on them?
Yeah, so you can find us at warriorsforafricanwildlife.com. If you go to the contact us page, there's a questionnaire and a basically like an interview questionnaire
Okay.
that asks, are you in this for the right reasons, right? Because we want like-minded people, we want open-minded people, we want people that respect cultures, we want
Hmm.
people that are willing to listen and learn. Because although you may have been in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, Africa is a completely different animal
Absolutely. Yeah.
altogether, as you well know. And the
Yeah.
whole premise is, Jessica, is so many foreign operative organizations have come into Africa and tried to tell these conservationists and these guys on the ground what
Oh,
to
I'm
do,
sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so building those relationships with trust. Hey, we've gone through some of your training. We want to listen and learn from you, and how do we assist you?
Hmm.
So veterans can find us at our website, again, Warriors for African Wildlife. You can find us on Instagram, Warriors for African Wildlife. And you have to be a combat veteran, either
Uh-huh.
Iraq or Afghanistan. I would be open to, the Gulf War veterans as
Mhm.
well. We may start looking down the line at international veterans, Canadians, UK. Um,
Okay.
and really, in LinkedIn, you can find me at Brad Craven.
Uh-huh.
All of the different various websites and social media go directly to me. And then I basically have that veteran who has applied and filled out the questionnaire and send me their DD 214. I want to know what you did while you're in. What are you doing now?
Yeah.
We need to have good-minded, stable-minded people to come over here
Yeah.
because we do handle firearms. We are in
Yeah.
hectic situations. We need people we can count on to watch our back as we watch theirs. Um,
Yeah.
there are other opportunities for disabled veterans as well,
Mhm.
where we bring disabled veterans in to do big wildlife conservation initiatives. Um, we bring disabled veterans in to do some firearms training for the different anti-poaching rangers that we work with, medical training, stop the bleed courses with combat tactical tourniquet, packing wounds, right, blood sweeps, those type of things. And all these things, Jessica, as I'm sure you saw while you were over there, is it's not the dedication that is lacking in Africa. It's just the resources
Yeah.
and the accessibility to quality quantity of reps.
Yeah.
Most of these anti-poaching rangers that do a 6-week course and qualify as a ranger, during that course they probably only get a shortened first aid course. They probably only get 10 to 15 rounds to shoot with their weapons platform, and then they're literally thrust out into the parks and the different reserves to face poachers who are very, very
Fully
good
armed. Yeah.
and good at what they do.
Yeah.
These poachers can come in parks at 9 o'clock at night, move 70 kilometers on foot with maybe a half liter of water, take a rhino, take the horn, and be out of there by 5 o'clock the next morning, and you won't even know they were there.
Wow.
Um, so our whole purpose, in my younger days, we did more operational stuff as far as patrols and actually out in the field with the Rangers. But I've found now that, especially with the team that I have now, we have some special forces guys, we have some Army
Mhm.
recon guys, we have some Marine Corps guys, we have an Army sniper as well. We have a medic, a former Army medic. Our first female veteran, she's a former mixed martial artist. She just did actually a women's self-defense course. But training, giving, and sharing skills with these rangers is the most impactful way that we make a difference. And during those training operations, you're driving through reserves. You're going to drive up,
Yeah.
right. There's going to be an elephant. There's going to be a lion, right.
Yeah.
Going to have
Yeah.
opportunities to go out on night patrols and set up OPs, observation posts.
Hmm.
So tactically getting involved in their long days. It's not, obviously not
Sure.
a vacation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the veterans get an opportunity, and I see it time and time again, where you have veterans come in and their kind of shoulders are sunk, their heads down a little bit, they're struggling. Some of them are farther along in their recovery process than others.
Yeah.
But by the end of the deployment, the biggest change that I see happens is around the campfire, right? In the evenings, where we have conversations and we're allowed to be safe and talk about our experiences and relate to one another. And just like you and I are doing here, where earlier we talked about how do you cope with that survivor's, guilt, or what's your hypothesis about this? How did you do, this? And, a lot of civilians and people who haven't been in these situations don't understand. They always ask me, well, how can veterans gain healing from going back into a situation that is similar to what gave them PTSD in the first place?
Hmm.
And I'll say this: when we're back home in the civilian world, our minds have the ability to race. We're not operating at that, top speed where we have to watch where we walk, we have to watch where we sit, squat,
Yeah.
we have to look for rhinos or elephants or poachers or whatever's around. When we're in the bush, guys actually sleep better sleeping on the ground with somebody with a rifle watching over their back than they do back in the civilian life. It's because throughout the day we are hyper focused again and mission driven and feeling like we're earning, you know, earning our lives and earning our ticket home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see how that is so well suited for combat veterans. I can imagine that this approach doesn't work for every veteran. And so that's such an interesting insight. And I'm just so grateful that you've shared all of this with us. I just, when I think we first connected on LinkedIn several months ago, and I'm not even sure how, but you shared with me, of course, anybody who's doing work in Africa, I'm always going to be like, tell me more. But then just this idea of connecting um, combat veterans to a new and very significant and important purpose through this skill sharing process and through these different opportunities. And it's so interesting because at first I was thinking of this as like about the animals, right? Like this is so amazing and you're going out and you're doing anti-poaching, but I didn't really think about the impact in terms of like the poaching industry, right? I was thinking more about conservation and then, the risk that, you all inherently take because poaching is dangerous. Like that's a dangerous thing to be involved in. And then also just this I guess this reestablishment of service
Yes.
in such a similar and a meaningful way. How many of
Yes.
your participants like repeat and go on repeat trips?
Yeah, so we've brought since 2021, which is our first deployment. This Uganda trip will be eight. This will be our eighth deployment. We've brought 22 veterans over. We now have seven that have done more than three deployments. So
Wow. Okay.
pretty good turnover, and obviously it depends on work, families, right?
Right.
Jobs, guys move. Um,
Yeah.
but I tell you, the team that I have with me right now, I call them my A team, and two of them are on my board. One is a former Army recon, Afghanistan and Iraq, Purple Heart, two Purple Hearts, and Victor McNeil. One's Aaron Cook, the Army recon guy. Victor McNeil, U.S. Marine. He served in both Afghanistan and Iraq, and you can just see deployment after deployment how much more involved, opened up, right, and responsive and dedicated and just kind of this is this is what I need to be doing, and it's
Yeah.
so cool to see that transformation of these
Yeah.
guys. Um, One is a former U.S. Navy Special Operations, and his first trip was just eye opening. He actually did. We did a 2 week basic course and then a 3 week advanced course, and he just tears, emotions, at the
Yeah.
end of these trips, with just the gratitude of being able to feel, as if we're earning our tickets home, and
Yeah.
feel like we can get some release and get some of that off our shoulders. So pretty
Oh,
amazing to
pretty.
watch, and that's what keeps me going is
Yeah.
seeing these veterans get what I got out of Africa, and
Yeah.
then see what these Rangers get out of working with U.S. military combat veterans, and seeing them. We check in, right? We went and trained at a reserve last year. We're going to come back this year, and you can see the transformation that they not only have in themselves, but then
Yeah.
that confidence spreads to each other, and then they're much more effective in their day to day operations. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win-win. It's a ripple effect, and then obviously
Well,
the animals are protected even more
that
so.
that was exactly what was going through my head is that everybody wins.
Yes,
Everybody
yes,
wins.
yes.
Oh, wow. Brad, thank you for all of the work that you're doing. And I know you're busy. I'm just grateful for this time that we've had. Thank you for sharing with my listeners how you have survived survival and how you are continuing to help other combat veterans do that. And you've given us great information in terms of how to connect with you. If I always like to ask this one question as we conclude, but if you had one piece of advice to give to someone who's listening today about how they're going to survive survival, what would it be?
I would say, um, don't hold it in. Don't try and suppress it in. Seek out others who have been in similar situations. Seek out service. And
Yeah,
once you kind of start to talk to others who have been in similar circumstances, then start to find some way that you can give back. And it's obviously not everybody can go to Africa and do
right.
anti-poaching, but in your family life, in your day-to-day life,
Yeah,
with your partner or your spouse, being better for them, is it all matters. It all matters. So
matters. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, service is definitely big for me. It's an entire chapter in how to survive survival. So, I definitely connect with you on that level. Thank you once again, and I can't wait to see some pictures from this Uganda trip.
Yes. Looking forward to it. Jessica, it's been an honor. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you for listening to How to Survive Survival. If you found something meaningful here, I'd ask for you to subscribe, share, or leave a 5-star review so these conversations can reach others who are walking their own road back. You can learn more about me and my work at www.jessicabuchanan.com. And until next time, remember what happened to you is only part of the story. What you choose to do with it is where your power lives.